Good morning and welcome back to Coffee Break.
So everybody knows that it's important to read to your kids, but I think it also matters what you're reading to them.
Right, and you don't have time to be plugged into the book world unless this is part of your job.
Yeah. Like I take that for granted, right?
Yeah.
Because I know what
we have to know.
Right, exactly. It is my job to pay attention to these kinds of things. But yeah, you're doing something completely different. You don't always have time to do all the market research.
Right. So we have some tips for cultivating your children's book library that will help engage your kids and instill a love of reading in them.
So before we get started, we should note that picture books can be expensive. They're costly to produce, they're costly to publish, and it's great to go out and buy a new book from an independent bookstore, but we understand that that's not always feasible.
Right.
So there's also lots of great websites and resources out there for buying cheap used books.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if your kids are at that age where they like to reach out and grab things,
yeah,
it's probably best to use used books.
Yeah. And of course, there's always your local library.
Right, exactly. So, cultivating a library, that's great, but don't feel like you have to sink hundreds upon hundreds of dollars into this.
Reading with your kids shouldn't be cost prohibitive.
Right, exactly.
So where do you start? Research.
Right. So if you can carve out some time to do the market research yourself, great. The places to look are Publishers Weekly and Kirkus and School Library Journal, Booklist, Hornbook. Yeah, these are all regular review journals, and they star the ones that they think deserve extra attention, so that helps. And they also come out with their best books list.
Mm-hmm.
And the New York Times and Huffington Post does this as well. So even if you just want to find these lists of books and then quick look them up and say, okay, yeah, that one looks good and I can get this one too.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to start because these are experts in the field and they are personally recommending these books out of all of the books that have been published that year.
Right.
Yeah.
School Library Journal also has a lot of bloggers on their team.
Mm-hmm.
So people like Betsy Bird, who is a children's librarian, Travis Yonker, who is an elementary school librarian. There's a lot of really good blogs on their site. So if you like the blog format, that would be a good place to start and kind of just see who speaks to you.
Yeah, and if you find a blogger you like, it's good to regularly check in with them. It only takes 5 minutes. You can do it on a work break.
Yeah, you can subscribe, and then it just pops into your inbox, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting about these best of lists and everything is that a lot of the books keep popping up all in different places. So one that the New York Times recommends is also one that the Huffington Post recommends and School Library Journal. The Dog That Nino Didn't Have, this was on I think 3 different best books of the year list. Yeah. So the ones that keep popping up all over the place, these are probably solid recommendations.
Yeah.
Lots of experts have picked this one out. Maybe I should check it out from the library or something.
Yeah. So that sounds like a lot of work if you're not really a research person. Some people don't like research as much as we do.
I love research.
I know, me too.
Anyway, I understand.
Yeah.
This isn't
Parents
for all people.
are busy.
Yeah.
So what you can do is just choose one of those methods. Maybe just read one blog and follow their recommendations. Or walk into your library and ask your children's librarian. They always have great recommendations.
Yeah. Another good thing to think about when you're building your library is if your kid has any particular interests, it's good to buy books that kind of cater to those. Because it's really easy to get them excited about reading if it's connected to something they're already excited about.
Right.
So if your kid loves animals, you're in luck. There's a million picture books featuring animals out there.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah. Then there are also, I think it's really fun and extra satisfying to find a book that fits this niche interest that your kid has, or maybe a combination of a few. So maybe your kid is interested in science, maybe they like a particular kind of humor, or maybe you like a particular kind of humor, so you get excited to share a book like Samira and the Skeletons with them. This is a really fun look at the human body, and it is chock full of wit.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of fun because it's got that Tim Burton-esque humor,
right,
which is really unusual, and then it also talks about skeletons and bones and, so if you have a kid who's really interested in science and exploring that sort of thing, like, there's not a lot of picture books out there for that. So it is
Right.
exciting when you can find the perfect one.
Yeah.
I also think it's a good idea to buy some picture books that you personally are excited about, right? Because, like, I don't know, kids pick up on your enthusiasm. So if you have a palpable interest and love for something,
Right.
then they're going to share that.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea to have some of your own childhood favorites in there, or just contemporary books that you've picked up and really make you laugh.
Right.
Like, my favorite picture book from last year was The Octopuppy. This is so cute. And, like, it got a starred review, but other than that, it didn't get much attention. And I'm just like, this book is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And everyone needs to know how awesome it is.
Which I think is a good point to say that even if you do all this research to look at starter reviews, but then you go to a bookstore and having heard nothing about it, you just see a book and fall in love. There's nothing wrong with picking that up. It's a great way to discover a book.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I mean, the experts can point out the really noteworthy ones, but they can't order you and tell you what to like.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. So in a similar vein of picking books that you're excited about, maybe you just really love the classics. You want to have the same books in your kids' library that you did growing up. So Goodnight Moon, Where the Wild Things Are, anything by Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. And when you're buying for, like, someone else's child or something like that, that's always a safe bet.
Yeah.
Right? Because these are, like, general crowd pleasers. These are the staples of children's literature.
Right.
You know, these aren't going to go amiss.
Yeah. I think it's always fun, too, to find maybe there's an older age classic that you like, and there's so many picture book spin-offs from them too, and that's a fun way to get interested in something that is at your child's level.
They have a board book of Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, they
It's
have
just like counting.
Yes, they actually have a whole series that's different
Nice.
classics like that. We have a book coming out that is a spin-off of Alice in Wonderland. So I think that's also something that your kid might not understand all of the stuff that you love about it, but there's this kind of meeting point of age level and excitement.
Yeah.
So these are the best tips that we could come up with. We think they're pretty flawless.
Tuss.
But of course, as you may know, neither of us are parents.
Yeah. I feel like that gives you a somewhat different perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to be featuring Rachel's own personal recommendations on my blog post this week, and
Yeah.
she is a mother of 4, so plenty of mothering experience there.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent credentials.
I was asking her what her children's bookshelf looks like at home. She's like, well, we have this shelf, and we have this shelf, and we have this shelf. So look forward to actual parenting advice for cultivating a children's book library tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.